Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Justa's Conversation, right here on Usala Radio, with your host, Brian O'Neill and Luis Gonzalez.
Of Justice Conversations with Dr. O'Neill and Luis Suave Gonzalez, with our guest today, who is Lebrian Brown, reentry specialist from Broad Street Ministries. We're going to be talking about some of these challenges facing those coming out of incarceration. Every year, nearly 700,000 people are released from American prisons. Estimated 9 million are released from jail. That's according to the National Institute of Justice. Almost two-thirds of them are arrested again within 3 years. Once released, formerly incarcerated people face a large number of barriers, including employment, housing, education, among the top things we'll be talking about today, and how reentry programs can help them bridge those gaps. So, welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So, if I'm somebody coming to your program right out of jail, and I show up at your door, what would you immediately tell me or direct me to do?
Okay, so I get a lot of that. A lot of people come from various state correctional facilities, federal prisons, or county jails. They come straight home. A lot of the guys, they max out, so they don't have a parole plan. They don't have a home plan. So what I do is I try to meet their immediate needs. Their immediate needs is food, clothing, hygiene, maybe some, like deodorants and whatnot, toothpaste, just to get the mind right. After that, we do some soft case management skills as far as I just want to talk to see what their goals are, long-term and short-term. So I might get a guy come home and say, hey, I got child support issues. I have, court costs and fines to pay off. I really need a job, LeBron. Or, I haven't seen my family in the last 10 years. I need somebody to help me connect with them. So what I try to do is I just try to meet their immediate needs first, and then I want to sit down with them and let them tell me what their goals are. And then together we'll find ways in which we can meet those goals together.
Gotcha. And LeBron, how did you get into this line of work?
Well, I got in this line of work because I was actually convicted of a crime I didn't commit in 2014. I took several polygraph tests, but in the state of Pennsylvania, polygraphs aren't admissible in court, so I had to do the time. Actually, what happened was the detectives came to my house, cornered me, and told me that if I just said that I did it, then they would do everything in their power to get me out of it. So because of that, I said, and I was a single father at the time. So because of that, to protect myself and my daughter, I admitted to a crime that I didn't commit. I was very young at the time. I had no knowledge. I'd never been in trouble before in the criminal justice system. So while incarcerated, I started seeing things that I felt was inhumane. Guys locked in cells that really had mental issues, guys trying to commit suicides, sexually violent predators being in the same jail as people that are there for their first time. So I knew when I came home I had to make a difference, and I had to save a lot of the people who were still behind the walls. So my biggest struggle was post-release, the parole and probation system. I served about between 4 and 5 years on parole and probation. During this time, I had to take multiple polygraph tests to make sure that I was doing what the parole officer said. I had to take re-entry classes on the outside that I had to pay for out my own money. I had a big bill when I came out of jail, and they told me that I had 60 days to pay that bill or start making payments, or I was going back to prison. So it was a lot of barriers that I had. And when I did start filling out applications, when they see that felony on your record, we are the only legally discriminated group against in the whole United States, which means that if I go to a job, whether I'm qualified, and mind you, prior to my conviction, I had a bachelor's degree. So they could say, hey, I don't want you here, even if you meet the qualifications, even if they don't have anybody, for the simple fact that you have a felony, they could discriminate against you and nothing happened to them. So because of this, I went back to school. I worked as a janitor. That was the only opportunity that presented itself to me. So I worked as a janitor. I worked there for about a year and a half. I put myself through an accelerated master's program. I obtained my MBA. And after obtaining my MBA, I decided to get into the field because I started to see more and more people coming home just like me, with skills and soft skills or even degrees or, like Louis come home with a whole master or bachelor's degree and can't find a job immediately. So because of this, I wanted to dedicate my life to reentry. And that's how I got into the field.
So, LeBron, how old were you when you entered the system?
I was 22 years old.
Wow.
And right now I'm 28. And I just got off my parole. I just got off because I was on parole and probation at the same time.
Right.
And I got off my probation/parole in July. So I pretty much spent my entire 20s, early 20s, into like trapped into the system, to say the least.
So you were more or less coerced into taking that deal.
Yes, I was definitely coerced.
What type of time were they threatening you with?
A maximum 7 years. So I was coerced, and they definitely told me that if they said, and also another thing is they destroyed all my court records. I never was read my rights, and they destroyed the video camera of them speaking to me at my kitchen table and telling me to say it. They destroyed that too. So I literally have no paperwork on my case at all. It's even hard to look it up online.
Right. Yeah, another thing that happens often is people are sitting in jail and then they offer them a plea that they would get out.
Mm-hmm.
And, people are looking at their life falling apart as they're sitting there. They're looking at their job falling away.
This is why we have so many innocent people in prison.
Sure, because they're coerced and they're desperate. And
they are coerced to signing confessions that they don't even understand. And a lot of the time, we do it because we are minority people and we don't have the money to fight the system.
Right.
So this is why I always tell y'all out there that we got to keep Larry Krasner in office. Because regardless of all the politics behind him, he is addressing wrongful convictions with that integrity unit. Under his watch, 10 people, and I know at least 8 of them, have gotten their freedom back. They otherwise would have died in prison with life sentences. So it's important out there for people to see people like LeBron that this is real, man. It's a real issue. A lot of us, we hang in these corners and we want to deal these drugs on the block, but we don't understand the law. As soon as we get into these rooms with the detectives, they put a confession in front of you. You thinking you're going home. You signing that. You signing your life or what? I seen it happen plenty of times.
And in the state, just to add to that, in the state of Pennsylvania, once you sign a plea agreement, you can never get that felony expunged off your record. So it follows you for the rest of your life. So you'll be a lifelong felon after you sign that plea agreement. But you will get out of jail early, but that's, the long-term effects of that is even worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand that when you're a felon for certain crimes, it disqualifies you from living in public housings. And this is the reason why a lot of people are maxing out in these prisons and coming home and becoming homeless because their family live in public housings and you cannot make parole to public housing.
Right.
And this is why we see a lot of ex-offenders becoming homeless today.
You're right. Since the law since 1975, federal regulations have instructed public housing authorities to consider the criminal history of applicants for public housing. And so most public housing authorities have adopted blanket screening policies that reject applicants with criminal backgrounds. And federal law mandates a public housing ban for people for certain types of specific convictions, such as methamphetamine production. However, for the vast majority of crimes, the federal statute gives public housing agencies broad discretion to deny or evict anybody with a criminal history of criminal activity. And so the other thing on that is many landlords are also unwilling to rent to the formerly incarcerated, and they do background checks as well. An estimated 4 out of 5 landlords employ background checks to screen out prospective tenants with criminal records, and they can do that legally. So due to these housing barriers, 1 in 5 people who leave prison will become homeless.
Yes,
And that certainly does not lead to
we see that
positive
every
outlook.
day.
Right.
We see that every day. For those that know, some of the first stops that a lot of people from in prison come to is Broad Street Ministry. And
Sure.
one of the first person they got to see is LeBron, you know,
Right.
because he's the reentry specialist. And we see it every day. People that come from prison maxed out don't have a place to stay for the night because it's a sad situation. But if you max out in prison, you are cut off from some of the benefits that people on parole are entitled of
Sure.
or to.
Sure. It also affects the entire family. You know, under the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's 1996 one-strike policy, public housing agencies have the authority to evict or deny an entire household if the agency has reasonably determined that any member or guest of the household is engaging in illegal drug use or other criminal activities. So you could be not even aware of an older sibling doing something, or somebody could be accused of doing something. It could be enough. And the whole family's on the street in those kinds of situations.
Right. Right.
So for you, LeBron, you come home and you go back to school and you get into the field of reentry. But you got your MBA,
Right.
right? Couldn't you go in another job and say, you know what, I'm done with that, I've done my time? You know, what led you to, I'm going to dedicate my life to reentry? And what led you to that lifestyle? Because reentry is a lifestyle.
Right.
It's not just a job, a title. This is a 24 hours a day job, whether you believe it or not, for those that do it.
Well, the reason why I chose to go strictly into reentry is because I feel like it's foul play. You know, I feel like people that come out of jail, they don't have the resources that, you know, other groups in America have, you know, other, populations in America, you know, black people, Latina people, especially disabled people, you know, they have so many things and programs that, you know, can help advance them. And if you come out of jail, it's almost like they throw you away. And I felt like, to be honest, I really started falling in love with reentry from the disability field. You know, after I began doing the master's program, and I worked as a janitor, and after that, I went into behavioral health. So I worked in the group homes, and I worked in the day programs with people with disabilities, and just seeing how much support and funding and programs there were, I said, these people kind of remind me of, you know, my type. I mean, wouldn't you consider somebody coming home from a 10-year, 20-year bid, not knowing how to utilize a cell phone or a computer, when you call that a form of disability? Or somebody that been locked in a cage for, you know, practically a half a decade, coming out, that's a disability. That can mess with you mentally and have long-term effects. And I felt like there has to be a way to merge the two. You know, and that's why I say, you know what, this is something that was just near and dear to my heart. It's not about the money, it's about the lifestyle. It's about the, you know, the way that it makes me feel when I meet a man and I help him get back on his feet, and I connect him with his family, and I get him out of his prison garb and give him a pair of clothes, or I take him to a job interview that I hooked up. Like, that means a lot to me, because I was fortunate enough to have a college degree. I was fortunate enough to have family, friends, you know, a large support system. But for a man that doesn't have that, you know, that's where I wanted to come in and try to bridge that gap.
And you listening to Lebrian Brown on Usala Radio. We'll be right back. We got to go to a commercial break. Do not go nowhere, because this is going to get interesting.
I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. And even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, Maria, and she convinced me to continue my education. Just never judges. She's a true role model.
From the depths of my heart, I thank you, Maria, for being a friend and a beautiful person. No one receives a diploma alone, and I'm honored to share this moment with you. Thank you.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back to Justice Conversations with Dr. Brian O'Neill, Luis Suave Gonzalez, and Lebrian Brown from the Broad Street Ministries, the reentry specialists, talking about some of the obstacles facing those coming out of incarceration. Of the 264,000 offenders that were released from federal prison between 2002 and 2006, half of those that could not secure employment committed a new crime or violated the terms of the release and were sent back to prison. 93% of those who were able to secure employment during the entirety of their supervised release were able to reintegrate back and not return. That's an incredible difference. 93% success rate. More than 90% of the companies use background checks in the hiring decisions, which of course puts a lot of people out of reach for those jobs. For 1 in 3 adults who are living with a criminal record. There is some positive things, though, that have happened. 18 states and more than 150 cities and counties have embraced the ban the box, which doesn't mean that the criminal record won't be taken into consideration, but it means at least you'll be able to get an interview, perhaps, and be able to talk about that offense rather than just be dismissed in the garbage can before you even meet anybody. Major corporations like Target, Bed Bath & Beyond, Walmart, Home Depot, and Starbucks have also chosen to ban the box. So there's a little bit of a movement going in that direction. How often that lands in a hiring position, I don't think we have data on that, but that is at least a step in the right direction.
I mean, there's a little bit of movement going on, but however, there's still a lot of discrimination going on when it comes to reentry.
Right.
And before we go into the topic of employment, there is a group of people, ex-felons, that still get discriminated out there, which is the LGBT community, the transgender community. You know, because a lot of people forget that they come from home from prison too.
Right.
And they are the most affected because they get discriminated on all angles. You know, and the good thing about Broad Street Ministry reentry program is that they don't discriminate. Anybody come to the doors has a place in our table. And it falls on this gentleman here to do the job, you know. And I know because I see them every day when I'm at the door. When they come, LeBron, we got somebody here. And I seen the way he moves. Right. Like, all right, let him in, bring him in. He don't make you wait an hour, 2 hours. All right, what you need, let's address what you need first, and then we get the rest. But yeah, there's a group of people out there that still get discriminated.
Sure.
You know, and a lot of people don't want to address it because it's like taboo, but they're human beings. If we talking about helping people, then we got to help everybody.
And when you took your first job, Ryan, you knew it was going to be tough, so that's why you took the first job. And it's not the job you wanted, obviously, but I'm sure that's what you counsel people to do. If there's anything out there at all, don't visualize that as the end job, but as the beginning, like the first step. And that can be really difficult for people to look at it that way when they're like a really dead-end kind of option's been handed to them. But anything on a resume is better than nothing, right?
Absolutely. And I always encourage my guys that it's going to be a process, just like anything else. You're not going to, very rarely you see people come home and have a job where it's sustainable and making like a sustainable living wage where, you can have a house, car, wife, or whatnot. It's going to be a process. So I always tell the people that come home, just try to get something. Try to get some seed money and then flip that and try to make that into something else, Without the Planet Fitness job, I would have never met the man who introduced me to the disability field. I would have never got into college again for my master's degree. From the disability field, I would have never seen the love and the togetherness of that field, which propelled my love for reentry. So it was a process, a step process, and I always tell people, you just got to make the money, because without any money you can't even live.
But how do you tell somebody they've been incarcerated for 30, 35, 36 years that this is the process, just go make some money and flip it, when most of the people that come home from prison don't know how to manage money. We never had money. So to us, it's like, that's a different language. That's like using a cell phone.
Right.
I remember when I came home after 31 years.
Right.
I was screaming into the cell phone like, I mean, they got a video out there somewhere that I was screaming into it. They was like, you ain't got to scream, they hear you.
Yeah.
But to me, that was like, what the heck is this?
Right. Right.
Or when I went to the supermarket and it was an all checkout. And I'm like, oh, how the heck I paid? You got to pay, like, we don't know that kind of stuff when you
Right,
spend
right.
decades incarcerated. So how do you tell somebody that just came home maxed out, 30 years, 36 years, you just got to get this job here and flip the money it is? That's like a foreign language for them, bro. And I think that for me, it's better if somebody say, you know what, man, I'm going to mentor you for about 2 weeks, man. I'm going to show you how to get around. I'm going to show you how to do this. A lot of the time, people that's coming home from prison have money management problems.
Right.
And this
right.
is why we can't get where we want to get at, because we don't know how to handle money.
Right.
We know how to handle jail money, meaning we know how to flip a pack of cigarette in jail. We know how to take some cupcakes and double them up and some chips. But when it comes to the real world, when you got to pay water and gas and whatever else come with bills, cell phone bill, it's almost like, whoa, how do I do that? And you're only getting half of what you paying for rent. How
Right.
do you make it happen?
Right. What I would say to that is, I would take the reentry specialist word that defines who I am in this role. I'll take the specialist out and insert broker. I look at myself in that capacity as a reentry broker. So, which is why when guys come home and I sign them up for a job, I'm not only signing them up for a job, but I'm going to the interview with them. I'm, doing mock interviews before we go just to practice. If they do open up an account, I'm right there with them. I'm right there at the bank. Maybe you don't want to start off with just a savings. Maybe you're checking in the savings. Here's the difference between your routing number and your account number. So it's almost like I'm a broker. I'm a teacher. I'm gonna walk this journey with you. So that way you understand. And speaking on that topic you talked about of discrimination, in this field, what I'm seeing is it's not only just the LBGT community that's discriminated in reentry. It's also sex offenders. You got certain jobs where it could be a warehouse away from children, away from women, and just because you have something with the sex offense title on it, they're not going to hire you, even if you meet the qualifications, even if you got experience in jail. So a lot of times, guys come home and they're very discouraged by that. Especially the guys that I get that are on Megan's Law, because not only do they have the parole and probation, or if they maxed out, they have the barriers of not having adequate housing, food, and shelter. But now they got to register. Now they got to make sure they can't live in certain areas because women and children. Now they can't even go to a job like McDonald's and get a $7.25 job because their minors are working there. So these are some of the things where I try to just walk with them. I try to be the voice of reason, so they don't have to be the only one talking to that manager. I'm in the meeting as well, letting the manager know, okay, so they volunteered, they came to my office every day for an entire month, they did this, they did that, and I feel as though you should hire that person. I even do checks, so if I do place somebody somewhere, I'll stay in contact with that manager, and if there is something that they need outside from me or Broad Street Ministry, I'll make sure I get it. Oh, your for example, your client has been wearing the same clothes. Okay, well, we'll get him another pair of clothes. Or your client coming in and he coming in late. I'll talk to my guests and ask, what are the barriers? Why can't you get up? Do you need me to call you in the morning? Do you need bus passes, transportation? anything that they need, I'm like their broker. I'm trying to walk that journey with them. And that's why they're so close and we develop a bond that's unbreakable because they appreciate that. And that's one thing that returning citizens don't have. The older, I have a saying, I always talk to my wife about it, the older you are, the less people care about you. And being that you old and you have a felony on your record, they just try to throw you away.
Yo, y'all don't even believe that out there, right? I'm old. But on the serious side, right? What is the, in your professional opinion, what is the percentage of people that you have talked to that have gotten the message you gave them and have, or say, you know what, he's full of crap, I'm going this route. You know, what is the success rate of the Broad Street Ministry program?
All right, and
since it started.
And I'm not trying to brag or boost my own ego.
I do
but
that for you.
I have never had somebody come into the office dissatisfied with the job that, not only myself, because I may be the reentry specialist, but I have Suave here that helps me out. I have our de-escalation team. I have a great manager who supports everything that I do. And
What's
it's just
up,
the
Mike?
team. The entire team is just together. You know, we back each other. We help each other. But I've never had a returning citizen come home and feel like they weren't getting the attention and the help that they need.
Sure. I want to ask you, Lebrian, when you came out, who did you find as a mentor or mentors, or did you find anybody?
Well, this was the thing.
I know you mentioned a guy you met at the job you were working.
Yeah. So I come from, now that's the thing. I don't come from like a broken home. You know, I grew up with both my parents in the house, middle class. My mom has a doctorate degree. You know, my father does real estate. So when I came home, this was like an embarrassment to my family. You know, so I had somewhere to parole. Yes, I had people that were, you know, going to give me food, clothing, and shelter. But the support, I really didn't have that, which is why when I did get my job and people saw how well I spoke and how I carried myself, it was a guy, I forget his name because it was so long ago, but it was a guy that really took a liking to me. He was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And I remember he just told me, like, you don't have to be what they say you are. I want you to try to control your own narrative. And when he said that, it like resonated with me because I really thought like, this is just it. You know, I failed my family. I put shame on my father's name, and you know, my mom or you know, she can't brag on me anymore. You know, she not proud of her son. I messed up my college degree. I can't use that because I'm a felon now. You know, and he was telling me like, just create your own narrative. You know, this doesn't have to be the end of your story. This could be the beginning of something great. And that's when he helped me get my first job in the disability field, and I went off from there.
You know, and that's the important thing when you come home. To have a successful reentry, you got to have people that believe in you. You don't need a whole lot of people,
Right.
but at least one person could be the different. And we got to go on a commercial break. You listening to a Justice Conversation on Usala Radio.
I'm going to talk.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you'll go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
Welcome back to Just Conversations with Dr. Brian O'Neill, Luis Suave Gonzalez, Lebrian Brown, reentry specialist from the Broad Street Ministries. I wanted to mention a little bit, touch upon education. Access to higher education for the formerly incarcerated was severely curtailed in '94 as part of the crime bill. They knocked Pell Grants off the equation, although they're starting to bring them back in a small way. The number of incarcerated individuals able to access higher education fell by 44% after that occurred. Nearly 40% of individuals over 18 have not yet graduated from high school that are incarcerated. And numerous studies have shown that one of the things that really helps with recidivism, magic bullet you might say, is education. Education is huge. More education incarceration receives while they're incarcerated, the less likely they're likely to be returned to prison, so it's very cost effective. Bureau of Justice Statistics reported in 2005 that only 35% of prisons, however, were providing some sort of access to higher education. There was an excellent documentary on PBS last week, 2 parts, about New York State institution that had offered degrees to inmates, and it was an incredibly rigorous educational program. I mean, these guys were doing graduate level work to get an undergraduate degree, but you should catch that. It was a 2-hour. It really is I think, changed a lot of people's minds, the way they view people that are incarcerated, because once given an opportunity, it changed everything for these guys. And a lot of them didn't see themselves as students till they got the opportunity. And it just became a whole different way they looked at the world, and it really opened a lot of doors for these guys.
It changed your perspective, and it gives you a little hope. Because I remember I went to prison, and you know this, I didn't know how to read and write.
Right.
So when I first wrote my first college paper, I had the hardest professor in Villanova, Dr. Beckles. That was like, if you passed his class, you was ready for anything. And I remember I got a C with him, and I thought I was an A student with him, and because I ain't know the difference.
Right.
And he sat me down. He said, "Man, I see some potential. Let me mentor you." So every week after class, I would sit down with him, and he would show me, right? And that opened the possibility for other things. Like, then I could really do this. Because I was written off by the New York State educational department. They said, you ain't never going to learn how to read. You're going to jail. I was serving the light sentence. I didn't know if I was coming home or not. But I remember when I graduated, man, and it was only like 3 people that graduated that year from Villanova. Because the process is like 15 years in college to get a bachelor's degree, because it was part-time studies. And then we started getting professors from that program in New York, like Sister Agnew. She taught in that program, so she brought it to Villanova, and we started getting more classes. But when I graduated, there was like, we ain't gonna have a graduation because it's only 3 of y'all. And man, I fought the school, I fought the jail. I was like, I don't care if 5 people come, I want to walk. Right. And they had the graduation, and to me it was a sense of pride. Like, and when I came home, that degree that I earned in prison helped me get certain jobs that I wanted.
Right.
And like I always said it, I came home, I was the director of a re-entry program with a building. You seen it right down the block from here. Yep. And from there, I worked at the 25th District. Now, if you could imagine that, a juvenile lifer just coming home after 30 years working at the police station. Mm-hmm. So how that looked like, how that happened? It happened because when I was in prison, I never limited myself. I said, you know what? This degree might not mean nothing in the prison, like the guards used to say, what you need a degree for. You don't need it in here. But I always say, if they open it, if I ever get the chance to go home, I'm going to put it to use. And that's what I did. Right. I put my degree to use. And I tell everybody out there, man, like, don't just sit in prison playing basketball and doing the prison yard stuff. Yo, take advantage of them college programs. Because when I went to prison, every state institution had college programs. And then when was it, 92? When
94.
they took the Pell Grant? 94, they took
94.
the Pell Grants. Guess what? The only prison that still had a college program was Gratis Falls Prison. And that was the prison I was in.
Wow.
And that's when I knew I got to get this degree.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got to get this degree because if I get shipped out to any other prison in the state, I'm done.
Wow.
I'm done.
Yeah, we still have a lot of access problems, especially for women in this state.
Yeah, they don't let it in.
They don't have, for Muncie, where a lot of the long-term women are, there's no access to higher education. You know, if we could move into even the 19th century here, not the 21st century.
Yo, it got to the
but
point,
we really
bro.
need to. But if we could just have internet access,
Right.
we could do online access for women. We could come there and teach satellite-wise, maybe 3 times a semester.
Right.
And you could have that model. It's definitely doable.
Listen.
But we don't have internet access. We don't even have the very bare bones to make this work.
In
Wow.
2015, 2015, they started allowing us to get tablets in the
Tablets,
prison.
right.
It's
Limited
like a
access.
Tinky toy.
Right.
And I sat down with my buddy, and we said, you know what? I ain't trying to buy no music. I ain't trying to spend no $2 on a song. We came up with a way where we hooked up with Westchester University, and we convinced him, like, yo, we got a program that if you take it, where we send texts to him and he give it to the student. It was a long process. But either way, we created a program using the tablets and the internet to communicate with the college kid. Because we had to do that. We had no other choice.
Right.
We had no other choice. And I tell the brothers out there, and for the brothers that's been there, yo, encourage them brothers in the prison, man, to read a book.
Right.
Read a book, man. Read a book. Learn how to write a resume online. Don't use your tablet just for music. Practice with it, because that's where I practice how to type. We ain't had access to computer, but we had access to a tablet. And I was like, everything I did is digital anyway. So when you go out, you won't have to deal with a phone. You won't have to deal with tablets. But to the prison system, and I know y'all watching, right? Open them doors. Let these college institutions come in.
Amen.
And give these brothers, because when you got a degree in prison and you come home, it's a possibility that you're not going back.
Well, but that's increased the odds. That
You're not going back.
Right.
Because the doors for employment is open.
Right.
And thank God for me, I went straight to a high position, right? But I saw the guys that came home with me that didn't have no GED, they're still looking for part-time jobs in these temp agencies. And there's nothing wrong with these temp agencies. I love all of y'all that helped me out when I was in New Stop. But you can't pay your rent with a temp agency job. You can't buy clothes. You can't sustain yourself. You know what I mean? When they telling you only making $7, but yet you got to pay light. You got to pay car notes. You got to pay child support. And like I said, ain't none of us make meals. So ain't nobody campaigning for you when your parole man come and slap them cups on you because you can't pay your supervision fees. I know guys like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I know guys like that that can't pay their supervision fees and they can't get their travel passes to go anywhere. Or you can't get a driver's license because you haven't paid your supervision fees. And ain't nobody out here campaigning for you because you're not famous or celebrity.
Right.
So what I'm saying to the people out there, know this stuff. Know this stuff. Because most of the people that are incarcerated in PA are coming from 2 districts. And 19133 is one of them. That's where most of the Hispanics in Philadelphia and the state prison come from.
That's right.
So if you don't know this, you thinking you supporting your son or your daughter or your nephew when they come home, and you not. You got to know this stuff. And to our politicians in the city, They know this stuff and ain't doing nothing about it because this is your district. Shame on you. Stop complaining when these guys stand in the gas station down the block and hustle. They ain't doing it because that's what they want to do. They doing it because they ain't got no other choice to survive. Because you telling them you can't even work at McDonald's if you got a certain felony in your record. Or if you done a whole lot of time. That case ain't prison. You don't have a body of work, so we can't hire you. So what am I to do? I mean, it's not easy. I made it look easy because I had support. I had Doc, I had state reps. I had people that just said, you know what, that's what you want to do, we're going to give you that job. But what about the tens of thousands of people that come home on parole that don't have that community and family support? That's who I'm talking about.
Absolutely. I was trying to remember the name of that program. It was the Bard College Initiative that was highlighted in the film, the PBS film.
Okay. The first film that they put out was the University of Sing Sing. Then that came out.
Right, and then
part of that.
It was highlighted in the film by the debate. There's colleges that come from outside to do debates.
Okay.
Refereed debates against incarcerated teams. And the big deal, of course, was that they beat Harvard in a debate about 4 years ago. Wow. That made national headlines. Those guys who run that stage, they have all been released, and they're doing very well now on the outside. So I think it shocked people, but it wasn't shocking at all to me, because to me, if these guys were able to articulate any of their life experiences on an academic level, they would blow they're kids. I mean, they were very well-spoken kids, but they were kids. And these were men, that had walked a lot of places and seen a lot of things, and they had a lot of life experiences these kids didn't have.
Well, let me say this, Doc.
But it was, to me, it was almost unfair, but they won easily.
Let me say this real quick, Doc.
Yeah.
The reason I think that Broad Street Ministry reentry program works is because they have somebody in there that been through the system, somebody that cares about human beings and not just titles. Because he knows I disagree with a whole lot of stuff that people do, right? When it comes to reentry, I don't play no games with it because that's my life. That could be me. I've been there, done that. I believe that the reason that program is moving and thriving is because of this brother here. And I always tell them, man, I appreciate it when somebody come in here, you don't let them wait for an hour, 2 hours, because that could be discouraging. That little 5-minute wait could be the determining factor that I'm out. I ain't got time for this.
Right.
Because it's embarrassed when you come into a program and you telling somebody, yo, I ain't got no clothes, I ain't got no food, I ain't got no money, just came home. That is embarrassed, man. When you're a grown man, you got to tell somebody, like, I'm wearing the same underwears in the halfway house because they don't give you clothes in the halfway house. They don't feed you. And then I got to wait till you done eating lunch and whatever. But this brother, man, like, I got mad respect for him, man, because he's just like, you can come up there at 7 o'clock. If he's there, he going to let you in. Let him in, Louis. I got him. Mm-hmm. And he just don't spend 2 minutes and kick you out the door. He might spend the whole day with you. I'll be mad sometimes, like, come on, bro, I got another guy for you. But that's the type of dude he is, man. Mm-hmm. And people need to know that the face of reentry, it's not these dudes that went to college and get these $70,000, $80,000 jobs out there just to talk. This is the face of reentry right here. Brothers that's been in the system, they know what it takes to be successful out here. And y'all need to look at him, man. 315 South Broad Street. That's a quick promotion.
But how long have you been with Broad Street?
Broad Street, I think I just came up on my 4th month.
4th month, wow.
Yeah, 4th month, yeah. So
seemed like 4 years, though.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work. Right now, I'm actually working with, shout out to my good friend now, Jawan, Haircut for Homeless. Mm-hmm. He cuts hair in the middle of, right in front of City Hall, right in the middle of Broad Street, cuts hair. It's a walk-up policy where he can just cut your hair, no charge, for the homeless population. So right now, myself, Louis, and a couple other members of our team, we met with him last week, and we're trying to get him to come into Broad Street because it's getting cold outside, and he will agree to cut our guests' hair. People coming home, get a fresh haircut, fresh clothes, and that's just another extra amenity to add to the many things that Broad Street has to offer, just to humanize the returning citizen again. You could lock an animal in a cage for a day or two, and the animal is going to come out insane. There's no difference from when you let a human being out of a cage. They don't feel like a human being, and our job is to try to humanize you and walk with you to whatever goals that you set for yourself.
Right.
So
Right.
tell me real quick in the next segment, because we got to go on a commercial break right now. You're listening to Lebrian Brown, Broad Street Ministry Reentry Specialist. Y'all know what it is. Y'all see him. We winning. And y'all listening to a Justice Conversation on Usala Radio.
(150/90).
180/111.
160/110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it, or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Our hearts are made stronger by how we treat others.
Put her there.
The light you share can impact those around you, but so can the darkness.
Later, twerps. Did Pete saying mean things bother ya?
So when you reach out to another person, take a moment to consider how they will feel and let your heart be the key to making a difference. Because of you, someone's entire day, year, or even life can change.
In every heart, there's hope.
Welcome back to Just Conversations with Dr. Brian O'Neill, Luis Suave Gonzalez, and Lebrian Brown from Broad Street Ministries, a reentry specialist. I wonder if you could touch upon, Lebrian, volunteer opportunities for folks, and not just those people all show up and want to dish out food on Thanksgiving Day, which is nice, but then you never see them again, for for 12 months, and they brag about what they did on Thanksgiving for people. But what other things can they do to carry through for the year? Do you have many opportunities there for people?
Well, outside of our mail department, they could help with handling our guest mail. The food department, we can use volunteers to serve food to our homeless population that we serve on a 5-day-a-week basis. We do our clothing closet, so volunteer,
Personal care.
Yeah, personal care. And as far as like with me right now, I actually just added an intern to our team. And the intern, what that person will do is work outside primarily of the county jail on state road or street road? State road. And they will do interviews, collect data, and then we use that data to see ways in which we can help expand the reentry program. So as far as reentry services, we don't have any volunteer services as of right now. But as far as Broad Street Ministry, you can always send an email to myself or Suave, or just go online, broadstreetministry.org, and they have a link on the website where you can sign up and see all of our volunteer opportunities.
Interesting. That's interesting about the data collection. So you're getting the clients to tell you what the needs are.
Yeah.
Specifically, where there's holes in the system and maybe
Right.
where the service is not being met.
Exactly. Guys that are, maybe have a month or two. And we also do in-reach as well. We have a program, and we partner with the Pennsylvania Prison Society, and we do in-reach at Chester State Prison. And what we do is we have a 10-week cohort where, guys will learn these skills, the resume building or what it takes to be a return, like the pretty much the new walk of life that you're going to have to walk on the outside. So we break it up in 10-week segments. And then when they come home, they have the opportunity to, meet with myself, receive small, soft case management. And, they just have like a personal mentor from the prison society that will also help them, re-enter back into society successfully.
Sure. Sure. Might be opportunities for some of our students and our sponsor we should mention, we should keep forgetting to do, which is Westchester University. And
right. But
there are volunteer
what
opportunities.
I always tell the people when I go to the prison and speak that writing a resume in one of them antiquated typewriters, it's not the same. Everything out here is electronic. And how do we make all the programs we taking in prison, certificates and make it relevant out here? You have to know how to do that when you apply for that job coming home. Right. Nobody cares if you got 25 certificates in prison. Can you apply them certificates to the skills and the job that you're applying to? And I think that's important for people to know. Because if you don't, then you just another brother that got 100 certificates without a job out here. So you got to make it relevant. But I say this, man, I go on the records and say this, and I seen a whole bunch of reentry programs. And Broad Street, man, for the little bit of time they had that reentry program up and running, you could really say that they doing their thing. This is almost like a one-stop shop. The only thing we don't have yet is the IDs, and that's about to change in a minute. I can't get into more of that, but that's about to change, right?
Oh, good.
But you could come down there, you could get one-on-one case management work. You could get clothes. You could get personal care. You get fed 5 days a week, which is something that a lot of people don't understand. Most halfway houses don't feed you. And if you don't have money or that support system out here that's taking you out to eat, that's a meal that you're not going to eat. Lunch, breakfast, and lunch, or dinner, if you don't have that money. So we have a lot of guys that come down there. We only don't feed the homeless population. We feed other people, they come in the mix. We give you clothes. If you just came home, no matter if it's 2 o'clock, no matter if it's 3 o'clock when we close the doors, if LeBron is there or I'm there, you're going to walk out of there with some clothes and some help. There's a whole lot of programs in the city that don't do that. Most programs in the city do one thing. Oh, now you got to go down here and get the other half. Like when they do these IDs, you got to go to Adams in the Parkway. He give you half a paper, and then you got to go get another half. Well, God, guess what? If I have money to travel, I probably won't be here to get this ID. Right. Why do we got to get somebody half of something and then put them through a whole 2-week process? Go over here for the other half.
So you have a one-stop shopping experience.
Right. So if you got a one-stop shop like we have in Broad Street right now, where you come and get clothes, case management, medical care, health insurance, you can open a mailbox. Because without an address, you can't get public assistance. So you had to have a mailbox. You can get all that within an hour.
And how is parole and probation is making referrals? Are they good about informing their clients to go to Broad Street?
Well, in my personal opinion, we've talked to parole and probation. Honestly, that's more of a Suave thing because he's very tied into them. But as far as parole and probation contacted me, I haven't had any parole or probation officer call me directly yet. The program is out there. It's more of the in-reach and word of mouth. That's how I get a lot of my referrals. Or if Suave reaches out to parole and probation on his own and lets them know that I am there, then that's one thing. But as far as parole and probation, they don't personally do that. And not to speak bad, I mean, my parole officer, me and him had a great relationship. He's part of the reason why he made my life so easier and allowed me to go back to school and whatnot. But just for the record, the role of parole and probation is one of the main reasons why reentry is the way it is. It's so hard for these guys because instead of the parole and probation officers acting as mentors, they act as if they're police officers. You know, they take their jobs to the extreme as far as respecting me. Respect me or else, you know. And if you come in with that mentality, you know, you can't. It's an opportunity to punk an alpha male, you know, to belittle a man and make him feel like a child. And a lot of these guys have already endured so much inside the walls. Why would you have a parole officer that will stay on them and not give them the resources? Because we are out there. But like I said, I haven't gotten one phone call from parole or probation yet, you know. But let that same man go out here and have to feed his family and do something wrong, they'd be the first one knocking on his door ready to take him back.
Right.
So,
but to all those parole agents out there that refer guys through word of mouth, I thank you. You know.
Yes, thank you for that.
Because they're not all the same. You know, I think the parole officers that do probation county are more, a little bit off the chain than state parole agents. You know, so, but to all of them, to all the good ones, thank you. You know, I appreciate everything you do for some of the brothers that you refer to us. Because believe it or not, it makes it different when they say, you know what, I'm going to refer you to this guy instead of taking you back. You know, that make it different. And I appreciate that because we ain't got nobody else locked up. But overall, you know, we want to thank you for being here. We want you to know, man, that you welcome to the show anytime. You feel that you have some information you want to put out to the masses and, you know, and we got to get a quick message out. You're welcome to come. Our show is your show.
Appreciate
Our job is to highlight people in the community, ex-offenders, people that's doing great things, that's been in the system, organizations that's actually doing the reentry work. And if you're not, shame on you. I'll tell you every week, right? But to those that's doing the work, shout out to Mike, the whole Broad Street Ministry team, Jeremy, China, Shahid, Leah, who else?
Crossley,
who else? And if I forgot somebody,
Sam
man.
in the mail, Aaliyah in the mail.
Right, to everybody, man, that help the brothers that come through the door and they're getting good at identifying if they came home from prison or not. So they push them right through with no embarrassment, man. They treat them with dignity, man. That means a lot. Thank you for listening. And once again, thanks to Westchester University for sponsoring this show. If it wasn't for you, we can't do this. So thank Westchester, Dr. Brian O'Neill. We need you, man.
Thanks for
Brian.
coming, Brian.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Peace
having
out.
me.
We see y'all next week with another exciting show. The podcast, Tuesday. What time? 11 to 12
And
on
thanks-
Usala Radio.
And thanks to Edwin for producing, and thanks to Moby for giving us some background music to take us out. Thanks.